My son took my life savings, sold my house, and said I was not his problem anymore. I stayed quiet until one decision changed everything for him. If you're listening to this, do me a favor, stick around till the end. And yeah, hit like and tell me what city you're listening from. Some stories deserve to travel far. My name is Clara Hale. I was 65 years old, living a quiet life in Ohio. Nothing fancy. 3-bedroom house. Small yard. Part-time job at the local library. I like the routine. Morning coffee. Same chair by the window. Same radio station every day. I wasn't rich, but I was careful. Real careful. I spent nearly 4 decades building my life from scratch. After my husband died when our son, Evan, was only 10, it was just me and him against the world. 2 jobs. Late shifts. Cheap groceries. No vacations. No new clothes unless absolutely needed. Everything I did was for that boy. And Evan? He grew up smart. Ambitious. Always wanted more. Bigger dreams. Bigger lifestyle. Bigger everything. I used to be proud of that. Looking back now, I missed the warning signs. The first one showed up about 3 months earlier. Evan called me one evening real smooth. "Mom, I want to help you out," he said. "You're getting older. Bill's online stuff, it's confusing. Let me set up autopay so you don't miss anything." That should have made me pause. But he was my son. My only child. So yeah, I trusted him. I gave him access. Worst mistake of my life. About 6 weeks later, he came over with his fiancée, Lauren. She was 27. Pretty in that sharp, polished way. Perfect hair. Perfect smile. But her eyes? They didn't smile. She walked through my house like she was already measuring it. "This place is cute," she said. "Real estate around here must be crazy right now." "I'm not selling," I said, plain and simple. Evan laughed. "She's just talking, Mom. Don't read into it." But something in his tone made my stomach tighten. A few weeks after that, I logged into my bank account like I did every Sunday morning. Coffee in one hand, laptop in the other. And my heart stopped. My savings account, the one I built for emergencies, medical bills, peace of mind, $118,000. Gone. Down to $800 and change. Checking account, barely $50. My hands started shaking so bad I spilled coffee on the table. I called the bank immediately. The woman on the phone sounded calm, professional. "Mrs. Hale, the transfers were authorized through your online banking. The funds were sent to an account under the name Evan Hale." I couldn't even speak. I hung up and just sat there. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just stared at the wall for hours. Then the next morning came. And that call, the one that cracked everything wide open. When he told me he sold the house, something inside me went cold. "You sold my house?" I whispered. "Yeah," he said casually. "Got a good price too. We're using it for a down payment on a condo downtown." I felt dizzy. "I had power of attorney," he added. "From those papers you signed last year. You've got 30 days to move out." Then he hung up. And here's where the story changes. Because Evan thought he won. He thought I was some confused old woman he could push aside. But here's what he didn't know. The house he sold wasn't the house I lived in. That place? It was a rental property. One I bought years ago and kept quiet about. And the home I was sitting in right then? It wasn't even in my name. It was protected. Locked down. Untouchable. Evan didn't just steal from me. He made the biggest mistake of his life. And I was done being quiet. After Evan hung up on me, I just sat there. Phone still in my hand. Coffee cold. Morning light poured through the window like nothing had happened. That's the weird thing about betrayal. The world doesn't stop. Only yours does. First, I felt empty. Like someone had scooped me out with a spoon. Then, clarity hit. Slow. Cold. Sharp. I started laughing again. Quiet at first. Then louder. because Evan had no idea what he'd actually done. The house he sold, the one he thought was my home, was never my real home. That place on Oak Ridge Drive? That was a rental property I bought almost 15 years ago. I never talked about it. Never bragged. Never needed to. It had tenants. A real lease. Real paperwork. And those tenants weren't going anywhere. The house I was sitting in, the one I actually lived in, was fully paid off and locked inside a family trust set up years ago by my late mother-in-law. Different names. Different paperwork. Different world. Evan didn't know any of that. And that was his downfall. I wiped my eyes, stood up, and did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my filing cabinet. Every document was there. Labeled. Dated. Organized. Rental agreements. Deeds. Bank statements. Insurance paperwork. I wasn't careless. I was prepared. What Evan stole hurt bad. That money was my safety net. My what if I get sick fund. My peace of mind. But I wasn't helpless. And I wasn't stupid. I sat down at the kitchen table and asked myself one question. What did he really take from me? Not my home. Not my future. Not my dignity. What he took was trust. And trust doesn't come back with an apology. I grabbed a notebook and started writing. Not feelings. Facts. Dates. Times. Amounts. That's when it hit me. Evan never had power of attorney. Never. I never signed anything like that. Ever. Which meant one thing. Either lied, or he forged it. And neither option ended well for him. I called the bank first thing. I need to report fraud, I said. My son transferred money without my permission. The woman on the phone didn't argue. Didn't question me. She froze the accounts immediately and opened an investigation. Then I called a lawyer. Not some random name. Someone I knew. Martin Caldwell. We'd crossed paths years ago through community events. Smart guy. Quiet. Sharp as hell. When I told him what happened, he went silent for a second. Maggie, he said slowly. This isn't just a family drama. This is felony-level stuff. Good. I wanted him to understand that. By noon I had an appointment. Before I left, my phone buzzed. A text from Evan. Why is the bank calling me? What did you do? I stared at the screen. No, are you okay? No, let's talk. Just panic. I typed back. They flagged suspicious activity. Standard process. Then I put my phone face down. Let him sweat. That afternoon, Martin listened as I laid everything out. He flipped through my paperwork, his eyebrows rising higher with every page. Maggie, he said, leaning back. If he sold a property with active tenants without disclosure and used forged documents, this is serious. How serious? I asked. He didn't sugarcoat it. Prison serious. I nodded. For the first time since that phone call, I felt steady. Not happy. Not relieved. Just solid. That evening I called the tenants. A sweet couple named the Harrisons. They'd lived in the rental for years. I told them the truth. They were shocked but grateful. Thank you for telling us, they said. We'll back you up however you need. That mattered more than they knew. Later that night, Evan called. This time his voice wasn't cheerful. It was sharp. What the hell is going on, Mom? The title company is asking questions. I stayed calm. You took money that wasn't yours, I said, and sold property you didn't have the right to sell. I had permission, he snapped. You signed those papers. No, I said. I didn't. Silence. Then anger. You're overreacting. Lauren and I needed that money. You'll be fine. That line. You'll be fine. Like my life was a minor inconvenience. I hung up. That night I didn't sleep much. Not because I was scared, but because I was finally seeing my son clearly. And the truth hurt more than the theft. The next morning, an email came in from the title company. They discovered problems. Big ones. Wrong notary. Wrong dates. Wrong signatures. They froze the sale funds immediately. Evan was officially in trouble. By the end of the day, my lawyer said something I'll never forget. "Maggie, you didn't start this. But if you stop now, you'll be enabling it." That's when I made my decision. I wasn't protecting him anymore. I was protecting myself. And Evan? He was about to learn that actions don't disappear just because they come from family. 3 days later, Evan texted me again. This time the tone was different. Not angry. Not scared. Polite. "Mom, I really want you at the wedding. It would mean a lot." I stared at the message for a long time. The wedding. The big event. The white flowers. The fancy venue. The smiling photos. All paid for with my money. Part of me wanted to throw my phone across the room. Another part wanted to ignore him completely. But then a thought crossed my mind. Let him think everything is fine. So I typed back, "I'll be there." I could almost feel his relief through the screen. That night I barely slept. Not from fear, but from anger I kept locked tight in my chest. The next afternoon, I stood in front of my mirror fixing my hair. I looked calm. Normal. No one would have guessed my son had robbed me. The wedding was held at a riverside event hall. Expensive, polished, over the top. When I arrived, everything screamed money. Tall floral arches. Crystal lights. Live string music. I walked in alone. People smiled at me. Hugged me. Told me how excited they were. No one knew. Evan spotted me from across the room and rushed over. "Mom, you came." He hugged me tight, too tight. "You look great," he said. "Congratulations," I replied. Lauren appeared beside him in a designer dress that probably cost more than my first car. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm glad you could make it," she said. "I know things have been stressful." That word. Stressful. Like stealing from your mother was just wedding nerves. The ceremony started. I sat in the front row, hands folded, watching my son promise loyalty, honesty, and love. The irony burned. During the reception, I played my role. Smiled. Clapped. Made small talk. I watched Evan laugh like nothing in the world was wrong. Every flower. Every glass of champagne. Every song the DJ played. Paid for with money he stole. Halfway through dinner, my phone buzzed. A message from my lawyer. "Police report ready. Fraud investigation officially open." I didn't respond. Not yet. I looked across the room at Evan, raising a toast. He looked proud. Confident. Untouchable. Let him enjoy it. This would be the last time. 3 days after the wedding, Evan and Lauren showed up at my house. Unannounced. I knew it was coming. Evan looked angry. Lauren looked controlled, too controlled. "The title company froze the sale," Evan said the second he walked in. "They're saying the documents were fake." I closed the door slowly. "Because they were," I said. "You're lying," he snapped. "You signed them." "No," I said calmly. "I didn't." Lauren stepped forward. "You're confused," she said. "You're older. You don't remember." That did it. The line. The disrespect. "I remember enough to know when my son steals from me," I replied. Evan slammed his hand on the table. "You're ruining my life." "No," I said. "You did that yourself." That's when the threats started. "You drop this," Evan said, lowering his voice, "or things get ugly." Lauren crossed her arms. "We can say you're not mentally fit," she added. "Have you evaluated?" "Locked up." I felt my stomach turn, but I didn't flinch. "You threaten me," I said quietly. And this goes from bad to worse. They left angry, slamming doors, burning bridges. That night I called my lawyer. Move forward, I said. No delays. I slept better than I had in weeks. The next week was chaos. Police interviews, paperwork, statements. Evan called non-stop. Apologies, anger, begging. One night he left a voicemail crying, "Mom, please. I messed up." But every apology came with a request. Drop the charges. Talk to your lawyer. Fix this. Not once did he ask how I was. Lauren came by alone once. Tried charm, then guilt. "You're destroying your family," she said. I didn't raise my voice. "You destroyed it when you stole from me." She left furious. A month later, Evan was charged. Fraud, forgery, theft. The case made local news. People started whispering. Some supported me. Others judged. How could a mother do that to her son? Easy answer. How could a son do that to his mother? The trial date was set. And Evan? He still believed he could talk his way out. He was wrong. People think being nice is the same as being kind. It's not. Being nice is staying quiet so nobody gets uncomfortable. Being kind is telling the truth, even when it burns. I had spent my whole life being nice. To my husband, to my coworkers, to my son. And look where that got me. Once the charges became public, everything shifted. Friends started calling. Neighbors started whispering. Strangers online had opinions. Some people told me I was brave. Others said I was cruel. One woman actually said, "I could never send my child to jail." I wanted to ask her something. What would you do if your child tried to make you homeless? But I stayed quiet. Because I wasn't here to explain myself. I was here to protect myself. Evan didn't take the charges seriously at first. He acted like it was all some misunderstanding that would magically go away. He showed up at my door one afternoon alone. No Lauren. No attitude. Just sad eyes and slumped shoulders. "Mom," he said softly, "can we talk?" I should have closed the door. Instead, I let him in. We sat across from each other like strangers. "I messed up," he said. "I know that now." I waited. He kept talking. I was under pressure. The wedding. The condo. Lauren's expectations. There it was. Excuses wrapped as regret. "You took my savings," I said. "You sold property you didn't own." "I was gonna pay it back," he said quickly. "Once we were stable." I laughed. Not out loud. Inside. "How?" I asked. "With what job? What plan?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached for my hand. That move. The one he used when he was a kid and wanted something. "Please," he said. "Drop the charges. I'll fix everything." I pulled my hand away. "You don't fix betrayal by asking me to pretend it didn't happen." His face hardened. "So that's it. You're choosing money over me?" That sentence cut deep. But I didn't break. "No," I said calmly. "I'm choosing dignity." He stood up fast. "You think you're some hero?" he snapped. "You're just a bitter old woman who can't stand seeing her son happy." I watched him leave without a word. And that's when I knew. He wasn't sorry. He was scared. Lauren tried next. She came dressed soft. Neutral colors. Gentle voice. "I grew up with nothing," she told me. "I just wanted security." I nodded. "And you thought stealing from me was the way?" She avoided my eyes. "You'll regret this," she said finally. "When Evan loses everything." I replied quietly. He already lost something. His integrity. The trial date moved closer. Every day I felt stronger. Not because it was easy, but because I stopped doubting myself. The night before trial, I sat alone in my living room. Lights low. No TV. Just silence. I thought about Evan as a kid, about bedtime stories, about scraped knees. I cried, not for the man he became, but for the boy I lost. The courtroom was cold, bright lights, hard benches. Evan sat across the room in a suit that didn't quite fit anymore. Lauren sat beside him, stiff and distant. The prosecutor laid everything out. Bank records, fake documents, false signatures, one piece at a time. Evan's lawyer tried to paint me as confused, as emotional, as unreliable. I stayed calm. I answered every question. When it was Evan's turn, he stumbled, contradicted himself, forgot details. The truth has a way of doing that. Halfway through, I looked at him. He wouldn't meet my eyes. When the jury left to deliberate, I felt oddly peaceful. Whatever happened next, I had told the truth. I didn't run. I didn't fold. I stood. 3 hours later, the jury came back. Guilty. On every count. Evan's face collapsed. Lauren started crying. I didn't feel joy. I felt closure. The judge scheduled sentencing. Outside, reporters asked questions. I answered one. This isn't about revenge, I said. It's about accountability. That night I went home alone. Métis sat in my chair by the window. And for the first time in months, I slept. Sentencing day didn't feel real. It felt like something was happening to someone else. Like I was watching a movie with bad lighting and no rewind button. The courtroom was packed this time. Reporters, strangers, people who love drama more than truth. Evan sat at the defense table, shoulders slumped, hands clasped tight. Lauren sat beside him, but there was space between them now. Real space. The judge walked in. Everyone stood. My heart beat slow, heavy. The prosecutor spoke first about the damage done, the fraud, the lies. Then Evan's lawyer stood. He talked about stress, about poor choices, about a good man who made mistakes. I almost laughed. Then Evan stood to speak. His voice shook. I betrayed my mother, he said. I let greed and pressure cloud my judgment. For a second it sounded real. Then he added, I never meant for things to go this far. That's when I knew. He still didn't get it. You don't accidentally steal someone's life savings. You don't accidentally forge documents. You don't accidentally threaten your own mother. The judge looked at him for a long time. Long enough to make the room uncomfortable. Mr. Hale, she said finally, you didn't make one bad decision. You made many. She spoke about trust, about family, about entitlement. Then she said the words that changed everything. 7 years. Gasps filled the room. Lauren started crying. Evan's knees buckled as deputies stepped in. 7 years. I didn't move, didn't smile, didn't cry. When he looked at me one last time, I held his gaze. Not with anger, with finality. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Someone asked, do you regret pressing charges? I answered calmly, no. I regret being betrayed. Then I walked away. The days after were quiet. Too quiet. No more calls. No more threats. No more apologies. Just silence. People assume justice feels like victory. Doesn't. Feels like grief with boundaries. Lauren filed for divorce within 2 months. She moved back with her parents. Got 2 jobs. Started paying restitution. The condo was sold at a loss. Money started coming back to me slowly. But money wasn't what I was healing from. What I missed was the idea of my son. The version I believed in. I started therapy. I started walking every morning. I started saying no without guilt. Friends rallied around me. Book club dinners. Coffee dates. Long talks that didn't need fixing. One night a friend said something that stuck. You didn't lose your son. You lost the lie. And she was right. Months later I got a letter from prison. From Evan. Short. Careful. Polite. He said he was thinking. Learning. Reflecting. He asked for forgiveness. I read it twice. Then I put it in a drawer. Forgiveness doesn't come on demand. Comes when truth sticks. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't rushing to save anyone. I was saving myself. There's no dramatic after scene where everything suddenly makes sense. What you get instead is quiet. Long mornings. Slow evenings. Too much time to think. At first, the silence felt heavy. No phone calls from Evan. No chaos. No stress. Just space. And space can be scary when you're not used to it. For years, my life had revolved around taking care of someone else. First my husband, then my son. Even when Evan was grown, some part of me was still on standby. Still waiting. Still worrying. Still fixing. Now there was nothing to fix. And I had to figure out who I was without that role. So I started small. I changed my morning routine. Instead of rushing, I sat on the porch with my coffee. Listened to birds. I watched the neighborhood wake up. I planted flowers. Not because anyone told me to, just because I wanted color. I stopped apologizing for things that didn't need apologies. Sorry I'm late. Sorry I said no. Sorry I feel this way. All gone. I learned something important during that time. Peace feels boring at first. When you've lived with stress for years, calm can feel empty. But if you stay with it long enough, it turns into freedom. The restitution payments started coming in slowly. Not enough to celebrate, but enough to remind me that accountability was real. Friends checked in. Some carefully. Some bluntly. One asked, "Do you ever feel guilty?" I answered honestly, "I feel sad. I don't feel guilty." That surprised even me. I went back to the library part-time, but this time it felt different. I wasn't working to survive. I was working because I liked it. I also started volunteering, helping seniors understand paperwork, finances, basic legal stuff. You'd be shocked how many people get taken advantage of just because they trust the wrong person. Sometimes it's family, especially family. One woman cried in my arms after realizing her grandson had been draining her account. She said, "I thought love meant letting it slide." I told her something I learned the hard way. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's permission. Slowly my world grew. New routines. New confidence. I traveled for the first time in years. Nothing fancy. Just small trips. Places I'd always postponed. I laughed more. I slept better. Then another letter came from prison. Longer this time. Evan wrote about therapy. About regret. About realizing how wrong he was. He said he didn't expect forgiveness. Just understanding. I believed parts of it. But belief doesn't erase damage. I wrote back once. Not angry. Not cold. Just honest. I told him I hoped he was changing. That growth mattered. That trust would take time. A lot of time. I didn't promise visits. I didn't promise forgiveness. I promised nothing. And that was okay. Lauren never contacted me again. I heard through the grapevine that she struggled. That she blamed Evan. That she blamed me. Blame is easier than accountability. As the months passed, something unexpected happened. People started coming to me. Neighbors, friends of friends, even strangers. They'd heard my story. They'd ask quiet questions. What would you do if? How did you know when to stop? I didn't give speeches. I just told the truth. I stopped when I realized love shouldn't cost me my safety. That sentence hit people hard. It hit me hard too. 1 year after the sentencing, I hosted a small dinner at my house. Nothing fancy. Good food. Warm lights. Laughter. As I looked around the table, I realized something. I wasn't lonely. I was surrounded by people who chose me. Not out of obligation. Not out of guilt. Out of respect. Later that night, alone again, I stood by the window. Same chair. Same view. But I wasn't the same woman. I had learned that protecting yourself doesn't make you cruel. It makes you alive. And for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. About a year after everything settled, I started writing a letter. Not the kind you mail. The kind you write to survive. I didn't plan it. One night, I just sat at the kitchen table with a pen in my hand and let the words spill out. It was a letter to Evan. Not the man in prison. The boy I used to know. I wrote about scraped knees in science fairs. About the time he cried when his goldfish died. About how proud I was when he got into college. I wrote about the fear I carried raising him alone. How I worked late shifts so he'd never feel less than. How every sacrifice felt worth it. Then the letter got darker. I wrote about betrayal. About that phone call. About the moment I realized my own son saw me as a resource, not a person. I wrote about shame. Not his. Mine. The shame of missing the signs. The shame of trusting too long. The shame of wondering if I somehow caused this. That part hurt the most. Because when a child does something unforgivable, parents don't just ask what did they do. They ask what did I do wrong. I filled 10 pages that night. When I finished, my hands were shaking. I folded the letter and put it in an envelope. I wrote his name on the front. Then I didn't send it. Some things aren't meant to be received. They're meant to be released. Weeks passed. Life kept moving. Then I got a call from a counselor at the prison. She said Evan was doing well in therapy, that he was facing his actions, that he talked about me often. I thanked her and hung up. That night I pulled the letter out again, read it slowly, and realized something important. That letter wasn't for him. It was for me. It was proof that I loved deeply, but I didn't destroy myself to prove it anymore. I burned the letter in the sink, watched the words turn to ash, and felt lighter than I had in years. Not long after, I started speaking at small community groups. Nothing official, just conversations. I talked about boundaries, about financial abuse, about how manipulation doesn't always look evil. Sometimes it looks like family. People listened. Some cried. Some nodded too hard. One man told me his daughter had emptied his retirement account. Another woman admitted her sister controlled all her money. They all said the same thing. I didn't want to cause problems. That phrase keeps people trapped. I told them what I learned too late. Problems don't disappear when you ignore them. They grow. At home I started redecorating, not because I needed change, but because I wanted it. I donated old furniture, bought a bright rug, painted the kitchen a warm yellow. Every change felt like reclaiming space. Evan wrote again, this time shorter, less emotional, more grounded. He said therapy was helping, that he understood now how entitled he'd been, that he didn't expect forgiveness, but hoped one day we could talk. I didn't reply. Not yet. Forgiveness isn't a timeline. It's a process. And sometimes distance is part of healing. I visited the coast that summer, stood barefoot in the sand, let the waves erase footprints as fast as they appeared. I realized that's how life works too. You move forward, not because the past disappears, but because it stops controlling you. One evening back home, I sat on the porch watching the sun drop low. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who apologized too much, who stayed quiet too long, who confused endurance with love. I felt compassion for her, not judgment. She did the best she could with what she knew. And so did I. If Evan ever truly changes, if accountability turns into character, maybe one day we'll rebuild something new. Not what we had, but something honest. Until then, I choose peace. And peace doesn't need permission. People think justice is loud. Gavel slams. Courtroom drama. Someone in handcuffs. But real justice? It's quiet. It shows up in the mornings when you wake up without fear. In the nights when you sleep without replaying conversations in your head. In the moment you realize no one owns you anymore. After everything ended, people kept asking me the same question. Was it worth it? At first, I didn't know how to answer, because nothing about it felt like a win. I didn't gain happiness from watching my son go to prison. I didn't feel proud walking past reporters. I didn't feel powerful seeing my name in the news. What I felt was clear. Clear about who I was. Clear about what I deserved. Clear about what love is not. Justice didn't give me joy. It gave me truth. And truth changes everything. I learned that you can love someone deeply and still walk away. That you can raise someone right and still not control their choices. That protecting yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you sane. Evan writes less now. His letters are steady. No begging. No blaming. Just updates. I don't know what our future looks like. And for once I'm okay with not knowing. I stopped living my life around what if. What if he needs me? What if people judge me? What if I regret this? Now I live around what is. I have peace. I have safety. I have dignity. That's not something anyone gets to steal. Not even family. Sometimes I think back to that phone call. The one that started it all. The call that should have broken me. And I realized something. It didn't break me. It woke me up. I used to think strength meant enduring pain quietly. Swallowing hurts. Making excuses for people who didn't deserve them. Now I know better. Strength is saying no. Strength is choosing yourself. Strength is letting consequences happen. If you're listening to this and something feels familiar, trust that feeling. If someone makes you feel guilty for protecting yourself, that's manipulation. If someone calls you cruel for setting boundaries, that's control. If someone hurts you and expects silence, that's abuse. Love does not require you to disappear. Family does not get a free pass to destroy you. And forgiveness does not mean pretending nothing happened. My life didn't end when my son betrayed me. It began again differently, yes, but stronger. I didn't lose everything. I found myself. And that's something no court, no thief, no broken relationship can ever take away. Thank you for watching my story. I hope it gives someone out there the strength to choose themselves.